Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, and it is also Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all your moms out there, including my own, who I hope is watching this, as well as my mother-in-law, who I also hope is watching this as well. Just have a great, safe day quarantining inside, and hopefully you'll get contacted by your loved ones sooner than later. But with that, let's move on to the actual breaches of the week, which is what we do every Sunday. Now, before we begin, I'd like to thank the following people that sent me links, messages, emails, tips, smoke signals, whatever it was to get me a lot of these breaches. It always helps me out, and thank you very much. Jason Dance, Chris Fallon, David Walker, Barrett Peterson, Jacqueline Wolf, and Neville Goodalls. Guys, again, thank you. And if you have a tip for me, please feel free to send it my way in whatever form is easiest for you. With that, let's start with GoDaddy, the world's largest domain and website registrar. Now, according to Bleeping Computer, which broke the news a couple of days ago, about 28,000 customers have been informed that their web hosting account credentials have been compromised. Now, the breach itself appears to have occurred on October 19th of last year, which is according to the State of California Department of Justice, where GoDaddy had to disclose this information, and apparently an unauthorized individual has gained access to login credentials that basically could allow them to connect to these hosting accounts via SSH. Now, if you are not familiar with SSH, this is Secure Shell, which is a network protocol that we use for system administration to remotely connect and manage infrastructure. And so here we are. So make sure you've got hardened passwords for your SSH logins, and I would also lock your SSH connections to only those specific IP addresses that you have for your business. That way the general public can't see that you have an open SSH port. But if you're on GoDaddy, heads up to you. Excuse me. Moving on. Let's talk about SAP. This is the massive German software group, and they announced this past Monday plans to notify approximately 9% of its 444,000 customer base, so that is a lot of companies, let's say about 40,000 or so, about security holes that they identified in some of their cloud-based products. Now, according to SAP, some of the issues were discovered following an internal review of their platform, which found that some of its cloud products did not meet one or more contractually or statutory security standards. That's obviously a huge issue. Now, they did not elaborate on the nature of these security flaws, probably because they're in the process of fixing them, and here we go. But SAP did say that they did not believe that any attacker has exploited any of these issues to gain access to customer data. We will see if that is true, and here we are. So if you use SAP in your business, heads up to you. Moving on, let's talk about DigitalOcean, because they are also one of the largest platforms out there, this time for web hosting, and they were recently hit with a concerning data leak incident that exposed some of their customers' data to unknown and unauthorized third parties. Now, the hosting company has not publicly released a statement, at least one that I could find in the articles that I read, but it did start warning affected customers about the scope of this breach via email. Now, according to the breach notification email that affected customers received, the data leak happened due to negligence where DigitalOcean, quote, unintentionally left an internal document accessible to the internet without requiring any password. And here we go. Most likely human error, unfortunately. So if you use DigitalOcean, be on the lookout for that email. Moving on. We're going to be talking about the law firm of Grubman, Shire, Miselas, and Sachs. These guys are known as the law firm to the stars since they have a ton of celebrity clients, and I think you know where I'm going with this. Now, some of their clients include famous artists like Chris Brown, Madonna, Lady Gaga, Nicki Minaj, Elton John, Timbaland, Robert De Niro, Usher, U2, and more, Christina Aguilera, and on and on and on. Now, apparently, the Sodinokibi, and I can never pronounce that right, ransomware group claims to have stolen gigabytes of legal documents. Now, the attackers are also providing excerpts to basically prove that they have done this, and what they have put out there is legal agreements signed by musical artist Christina Aguilera. Now, this is a huge trove of documents, apparently 756 gigabytes worth of data, which includes contracts, phone numbers, email addresses, personal correspondence, non-disclosure agreements, and social security numbers of some of the world's most famous individuals. This has the potential to be a massive scandal that may actually drive the news cycle away from the coronavirus for a little bit to talk about Elton John's home phone number or whatever we're going to see. So there you go. Hopefully that will be taken care of sooner than later in a positive way. Moving on, we're going to be talking about the government of the state of Virginia. Apparently, attackers hijacked and took control over 2 of their subdomains on the official website for the Virginia state government. Now, for some reason, they turned these 2 sites into some sort of ebook scam, and this is interesting. Now, the 2 domains or 2 subdomains that they hit were vwn.virginia.gov and crc.virginia.gov, and these both subdomains had the same content that the attackers put out there, which was a list of ebook titles and genres, which redirect basically to a messy page with links to download PDFs. Now, it's unclear whether the attackers are doing what they're doing with these domains. It's possible these pages have just been a placeholder for content. It's possible that they're going to be hosting malicious content. Or, and as one security searcher was researching this, said maybe the hackers were actually running some sort of SEO scheme. So here we go. So the scheme could have been basically designed to charge people for ebooks that were otherwise free, or just steal money without ever sending the books. And this is according to one of the researchers out of Malwarebytes. So heads up, if you've been to the government of Virginia's website and they are trying to offer you books, it could be fake. Moving on. We need to talk about Roblox, the massively popular video game that I know a lot of teens and kids play. I'm sure adults do as well. They suffered a security breach after a attacker bribed a company employee to gain access to the company's back-end customer support portal. Yes, so here we go. Now, this allowed the attackers to look up other users' personal information and give out virtual in-game currency, with the attacker also being able to see other users' email addresses, change their passwords, remove 2-factor authentication from their accounts, ban users, and more. Now, the attacker, and this is where it gets interesting, shared screenshots with news outlets which included the personal information of some of Roblox's most highest profile users. I'm guessing those are the ones on YouTube that, like a zillion kids are watching. Now, while the attacker, and it keeps getting interesting, while the attacker could have looked up information on many users, apparently they only accessed a handful of accounts. In an online chat with Motherboard from Vice News, the attacker said, and I quote, "I did this only to prove a point to them." So we'll see if it's more nefarious than that. But if you use Roblox, heads up. I mean, you can change your password, but if they've got back-end access, they can do whatever they want pretty much to your account. Moving on, we're going to be talking about Fresenius. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is Europe's largest private hospital operator and a major provider of dialysis products and services that are in extreme demand right now thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic, and they were hit with a ransomware attack on their technology systems. The company said this incident has limited some of its operations, but that patient care does continue. Now, this past Tuesday, a reader of Krebs on Security, as written by Brian Krebs, basically said that a relative that was working for Fresenius's U.S. operations reported that the computers in his company's building had been roped off, and that a cyber attack had affected every part of the company's operations around the globe. The reader said the person that talked to Brian Krebs said that the apparent culprit was Snake ransomware, which is a relatively new strain that was first detailed earlier this year that is being used to take down large businesses. I actually believe it was Brian Krebs as well. That was the one that identified that or wrote about it. And so here we are. So if you have anything to do with Fresenius, your service may be interrupted, or if you're an employee, heads up, you guys might have some issues. Moving on, we're going to head up to the Great White North and go to Canada and talk about the Northwest Territories Power Corporation. The website for the NTPC went down last week after attackers managed to disable the site with ransomware. Now, in a release, NTPC said that it had suffered a cyber attack from an unknown source, adding that an investigation into the matter is obviously underway. Now, the energy company also said that there's no timetable for completion of this investigation, but it has been in communication with both territorial and federal Canadian governments, as well as the Canada's Federal Cybersecurity Agency. The NTPC also revealed that all electricity is continuing to function, so that is good, but their email system has been shut down until they can confirm whether it was compromised or not. Some visitors to their website also said, basically saw the notice that their files had been encrypted by NetWalker, which I'm guessing is either a ransomware strand that I'm not familiar with off the top of my head or a group. But either way, if you are in the Northwest Territories and you use their power, hopefully you'll be okay. Moving on, let's talk about Moby Friends. This is apparently a very popular dating app for mobile users. The credentials of 3.5 million users of this app has basically surfaced onto a deep web hacking forum, and this is according to researchers. Now, the compromised credentials were originally posted for sale on this underground forum on January 12th. And the threat actor that's attributed to them basically said that this was from a January of 2019 breach event, meaning they held on to these credentials for a year before they surfaced into the dark web. Now, these were also later shared for free, these credentials, on April 12th by a different threat actor on the same forum. And so here we are. Anybody can go and get your username and password. So if you use Moby Friends, heads up to you. Moving on, we're going to be talking about a website called Cam4. This apparently is a very popular adult platform, and I think you can figure out what goes on there. A security review of their site from an organization called Safety Detectives has found that Cam4 had misconfigured an Elasticsearch production database so that it was very easy to find and view a ton of personally identifiable information, as well as corporate details like fraud and spam detection logs, and on and on and on. To quote the researchers, leaving their production server publicly exposed without any password. So there you go. 7 terabytes and 10.88 billion records were exposed, and hopefully nobody malicious found these and downloaded them, but we don't know, so good luck. Moving on, let's talk about the Toll Group here. We are talking actually about them again. I had to double back on this because I remembered the name and said, wait a second, didn't I do them in a Breaches of the Week? And yes, I did. They got hit again. They suffered their second ransomware attack in the last 3 months, with the latest one conducted by the operators of the Nephilim ransomware gang. So, Toll Group is Asia Pacific's leading provider in transportation and logistics services, employing roughly 44,000 people at 12 locations in more than 50 countries, 1,200 locations, excuse me. On February 5th of 2020, the Toll Group announced that they had suffered a cyber attack, basically called Mail2, that required them to shut down their network to prevent it from being encrypted. That's the one I reported on, and here we are. So with that, hopefully they will get back online and everything will be good. Moving on, we're going to talk about the CPC, or CPC Corp. This is Taiwan's state-run oil refiner. On Monday, May 4th, they confirmed they suffered a malware attack, resulting in gas stations across the country being able to accept any kind of electronic transaction, whether you're using the app or their what they call the CPC VIP card. I'm guessing that's like a rewards card or maybe a pre-filled card that they have. Now, CPC said it's been experiencing a system outage since noon on that day after falling victim to a ransomware attack, and that all employees at its headquarters have been advised not to access the company's online systems. Meanwhile, they are asking customers to pay for their gas with cash or by credit card until their internal systems are up again. Hopefully they will get that back online. They also have said that they don't know who the source is, but obviously when we are looking at things like state-run oil refiners in Taiwan getting hit, China is always a suspect in this, and so I have no doubt that they are investigating this thoroughly from that angle as well. Excuse me. Moving on, let's talk about the Israeli government, because details of about 4.5 million of their citizens, including facial pictures, are not sufficiently protected from misuse or outside hacking. This is according to the state comptroller's report this past Monday for Israel. Now, the problems highlighted by the comptroller related to the Transportation Ministry database for driver's licenses, as well as the private sector database for smart bus cards. In other words, your bus pass is being run by a private company if you're in Israel. Now, the report said the databases are defined as a database with a high danger of being misused or hacked. Comptroller Matanyahu Engelman said that neither database had sufficient protection for privacy or from outside hackers, and that those in charge did not have comprehensive information with which to assess the protections. Now, that's obviously a very serious issue for the state of Israel that is under constant cyber attack, and also quite surprising as well, because they have been known, I think, historically to have some of the most stringent cyber defense strategies on the planet, and a lot of the cybersecurity products that we use originally were coming out of Israel or those that went through the Israeli training. So it's something to behold here, but hopefully they'll get that cleaned up. Moving on, let's head back up to Canada and go to York University. Students and security experts say York University must release more information about what the school calls an extremely serious cyber attack last week. Now, York says that the Friday evening attack, so that would have been about a week ago or so, week to 10 days ago. I can't math right now. This Friday evening attack corrupted a small number of their servers and workstations, though it has not yet said if any sensitive information has been stolen. Now, in this statement, York said its IT department obviously they moved as quick as they could, severed the internet connections, shut down many of their online programs after the attack began, and they are hoping that this mitigated it severely, but we don't necessarily know what's going on. And as of Monday afternoon, so a few days ago, 5 days ago, 6 days ago, you math for me, some of these programs remained offline, including portals where students could access things like OSAP applications, tuition fees, final grades from their winter semester, and on and on and on. So that is a very serious issue. Hopefully they're going to get that cleaned up and deliver information, which the government of Canada typically requires of data breach notifications and disclosures. Moving on, we're going to be talking about the Oregon State Police. An audit of the state police's cybersecurity practices was published this week and found that the agency is not following basic policies widely promoted by government agencies nationwide, including active management of its hardware and software inventory and user authorization. I cannot stress enough how important a good asset management program is to an organization. Now, the report, which was delivered by the Office of Secretary of State Bev Clarno, also found that Oregon's Enterprise Information Services, the statewide IT agency, has fallen short in its duties to assist the state police with information security protocols. And having worked with various forms of law enforcement over the years in a cybersecurity capacity, it's not just Oregon State. But I'm glad it's being addressed, and hopefully the state police will be able to harden their defenses, as all law enforcement agencies from small to massive should be doing. Moving on, and finally, we are going to be talking about Tesla. And if you drive a Tesla, heads up to you, because this may possibly affect you if you decide to upgrade your car, and this is what's going on. Now, if you didn't know, Tesla allows their owners to retrofit Model X and Model S cars that are equipped with older infotainment systems and replace them with the newer versions of their media control units that offer things like better performance, video streaming services, playable video games that won't run on Tesla's first entertainment system, and on and on and on. Earlier versions also did not include the self-driving capability that the newer ones did, and so a lot of people that have had their Teslas for quite some time with these first generations are popping out their old systems and popping in the new ones. The dealers are obviously doing this for them. However, a computer researcher made a surprise discovery when he bought 4 Tesla media control units off of eBay. Now, as reported by Inside EVs, basically a white hat hacker known as Green the Only found media control units that contained the owner's personal information. Now, Green said every module he bought contained, and I quote, owner's home and work locations, all saved Wi-Fi passwords, calendar entries from the phone, call lists, and address books from paired phones, Netflix, and other stored session cookies, meaning he could possibly use that to replicate that and get into a Netflix session or whatever else is doing. And so this is what we have, and we have this problem, I think, among all car makers. I don't care if you're Ford or Ferrari, a lot of them, when they roll off the assembly line, they stop updating these things, or they store this information, and then when people go to sell their cars, a lot of times this information is in there with it. Tesla has been, and I have to give them credit for this, they have been one of the few car makers that continuously updates their head units for security patching and all of that, and I'm a big fan of them doing that. But if they are allowing you to upgrade, understand that if you have all of this old hardware from your version 1.0 infotainment center from your Tesla, it's better to keep it or destroy it than actually sell it, because you don't have a real solid methodology for wiping all of this stuff out. And by virtue of that, I really think Tesla needs to add a feature that will erase and overwrite the data. So not even if you're just selling the car, eBaying your old equipment to upgrade it. If you're selling your car, you should have the ability to go in and not just erase the data that is on you, these usernames and passwords and Wi-Fi passwords and everything else. They should have an erase and overwrite feature. So if I were to rip that out of the car, attach to it, and then start looking to extract data from the head unit, it would have all been overwritten, in a rather aggressive manner, therefore protecting your privacy and your identity. And so I think that's something that's very important to consider if you've got a Tesla and you're going to upgrade to the latest and greatest head unit in your car. And with that, those are your breaches. And in Tesla's case, it is a breach, actually. So it is a breach. So these are your breaches of the week. And I hope you weren't affected. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.